Good early afternoon. We are live here on the Blue Plate Special from Orange Beach, Alabama, Wisdom Harbor Studios here at the Wharf. And we're glad you're with us. We have a fun and probably funny show today. I'm just telling you, we're going to click back and we're going to do a second round of ridiculous history. So we're going to go back in time and do some ridiculous history. So just hang on just a minute and we're going to do it. Teresa Roller from Mobile, Marcy Crosser-Taylor from sunny Pasco, Washington. Your mom turned 87 yesterday? Wow. Happy birthday to your mom. Bob Woodall. Hello, buddy. How are you doing, Big Bob? Glad you're with us. Thomas McMillan from Connecticut. Margaret Davis from Northeast Mississippi. Cat Hooker from the Catfish Shack in Spring City, Tennessee. Becky Costill from South Carolina. John R. Smith III watching in the hometown of Orange Beach, Alabama. Good. Kimberly Petrucki, sunny North Texas today. Kevin Tim Perkins, the old man, is here. How about you, old man? Sandra Mendonica from Searcy, Arkansas, home of Harding University, where you ate your mascot. Becky Otterbury, Billy Roberts Paget from Chile. Destin is 63 in Destin? Wow, that's just like right down the beach from us. So hard to believe it's that. I mean, it's not that cold here, is it? It is? Oh, it's not that cold. We're going to find out how cold it is. Gary Duke in Mississippi. Oh, no, that was Missouri. I'm sorry. Mississippi and Missouri are separated by probably 10 points on the educational scale. You know what we say in Alabama? Thank God for Mississippi. So what is the temperature?
65. We
are colder than Destin?
Mm-hmm.
When did it turn 65 here?
This morning.
When I got in at 5:30, it wasn't that cold.
I don't know. It was cold whenever I left the house.
Come here, lean in and tell them. It's our weather girl. Little M.
Hi. Oh.
There you go. Now tell them, what's the temperature?
It's 65 degrees Fahrenheit.
And what is our forecast?
Sunny, partly cloudy.
Okay, sunny, partly cloudy. That's a pretty good guess. Thank you, little M.
Thank you.
All right. Teresa Roller Haight, 66 in Mobile. I guess I came in early and I just was not aware it was that cool. Jeff Herring, you're in the backyard with the dogs. Beautiful Forsyth County, Georgia. Yeah. Cookie Wagner Woods, howdy. All right, we're gonna get to it. I do want to tell you guys, if you're new to us, please click that notification button on Facebook and turn on your notification on your phone, and you'll be notified anytime we go live with anything here, and put it on Facebook. And also, if you will share, that would be great. This would be a good episode to share. Going to be fun, going to be funny. And so just share it. There's a little share thing down there with options, and it says to your page. Yes, share to your page. And then your page will be getting the same broadcast that you're getting. So what else? If you're on YouTube, please click the subscribe button. And also to the Twitter people and the Instagram people. Instagram's not getting this live, but they get it afterwards. As soon as we're through, it gets posted. Dana Kilpatrick says that your show is always fun. Deanna Kilpatrick, thank you. I appreciate that. There's Diamond Rio. How are you doing? Manchester, Tennessee. Okay. All right. We're, that is a good lead in, Diamond Rio, because I'm going to sing for you first. When we were doing theme songs the other day, and I'll just tell you right off the bat, my throat is like screwed up. I've got semi-laryngitis or something, but I'm going to still make an effort at this theme song. But there is a big one that we left out. I say it's a big one. It might be unknown to many people. Certainly the theme song is unknown. But do you remember The Courtship of Eddie's Father? You remember that? Starring Bill Bixby as Eddie's father, Brandon Cruz as Eddie, and Mayoshi Umeki as Mrs. Livingston. You remember that? Okay, I'm going to make a stab at the theme song for you. And this is with the bad throat and everything, but this is a stab at it. Okay, it went, people, let me tell you about my best friend. He's a warm-hearted person who loved me to the end. People, let me tell you about my best friend. He's a one-boy, cuddly toy, my up, my down, my pride, my joy. People, let me tell you about him. It's so much fun, whether we're talking man to man, whether we're talking son to son, 'cause he's my best friend. Yada, ba-da-ba-da-ba. Ba-da-ba-da-ba, ba-da-ba-da-ba, ba-da-ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And then Mrs. Livingston would come in and she would say, Miss Eddie's father, it's time for Eddie to go to bed. You remember that? You know who wrote that song? Harry Nilsson wrote that song. Harry Nilsson was the guy who wrote One is the Loneliest Number for Three Dog Night. He did that song, Everybody's Talking About You, that was in Midnight Cowboy. So, anyway, but he did Courtship of Eddie's Father's theme song. So, Rachel Slayton Tugger, you just made a TikTok yesterday with that song, using your dogs with that song. Your dogs probably sang it better than I sang it just then. I don't know what's up with my throat. Okay. All right. You ready for a history lesson? To go back to some ridiculous history. We have 8 pieces today of ridiculous history. Now, this is, as I explained the other day on the last, I think it was last Thursday's show, because we had a guest on Tuesday. We had Leslie Ann, who is an author, and she was on Tuesday. So if you want to go back and see that, you ought to. But the history that we'll be talking about is either history you hadn't heard of, history that was kind of a lie. It was like just incorrect, or it was history that is just like buried so deeply that it's just not in any history books or anything. And most of this stuff I found from going in research, where you just like are flagging something and then go down that rabbit trail, then flag it and go down that rabbit trail and go down that rabbit trail. And I buy books on, history and little known history, and I do all that. So, but anyway, here are the 8 for today. The first one is about wagon trains. So, there's a greatly believed image in the Old West of the wagon trains traveling in a straight single file line across the prairie, okay? But wagon trains, whenever possible, traveled side by side, up to 10 miles wide. And this was to avoid the clouds of dust, as well as the furrows and ruts and potholes of the previous travelers. And if they had traveled, in fact, in single file lines, every wagon behind the lead wagon would not only eat their dust, they would wear it and have it in their nose and cake their eyes. And so it's an odd thing to think of when you think of the movies that you see of wagon trains, that they didn't go in single file. They went side by side, and sometimes the side by side was like up to 10 miles wide. There's also, here, think about this with the wagon trains, was a safety rule for the pioneers. Was this a safety rule? If Indians attacked, would you circle your wagons? Because that's what's in the movies, right? But no. Circling your wagons would just get you killed. I mean, can you imagine the time and labor and logistics that would go into circling even a few wagons, much less 10 miles of wagons? And before it would have ever happened, the Indians could have taken a load off the pioneers' minds by scalping them. But circling the wagons was an invention of Hollywood, who liked the way it looked on film. And some wagon trains did form a circle when they stopped for the night, but only if they had time, and it was not to protect themselves against attack. They did it to create a makeshift corral to contain the animals. And that was what they did on the first few trips over. So, all right, number 7. I'll call this shaking things up. It's so common today that it's even referred to as common table salt. You know, salt is in such abundance these days. It's cheap. It only makes sense. You know, you think that it was always available, but it wasn't. In fact, salt was very, very expensive and not always easy to come by right up to the 1900s. Traders in ancient Greece bartered their slaves for salt, and a lazy or unruly slave was considered not worth his salt, which is an insult that's still in use today. Our word salary dates back to Roman times, when soldiers were paid an allowance called, in Latin, it's a salarium argentum, which translates to salt money, so they could buy salt. And the Latin words salus, the Latin word salus for well-being, and it's salubritas for health. Both are derived from the Latin root sal, meaning salt. In Mali, West Africa, salt was once worth its weight in gold. Or another way of looking at it is that gold was worth its weight in salt. How about that? So, here's one that I came across that I think is kind of funny, but it's also a testament to getting things done or finding a way where there is no way. We'll call this one keeping an eye out. Okay. This is in 1801, and Captain Horatio Nelson of the British Navy was attacking French troops in Copenhagen, Denmark. And he was just part of that battle attack, the part of that navy. And so the tide of the battle turned in favor of the French. And so Captain Horatio Nelson was ordered by the command ship to retreat. But Nelson thought he was in a good position and wanted to continue fighting and ignored the command. So his subordinate urged the captain to listen to the commander's order, and you know, the commander is saying to retreat. And so Nelson picked up a telescope to verify the signal for retreat for himself. But Nelson was blind in one eye, and he purposely held the telescope to his blind eye and said truthfully that he couldn't see any signal of retreat. So Nelson continued his attack and won. And so this thing, I mean, people have forgotten the event, but they still use a phrase because that that brought us a phrase that means to ignore something that's still used today, which to ignore something is to turn a blind eye to it. And so that's where that came from. All right, you liking this? You liking this? John Smith says, interesting. Yes, Marcy Crosser Taylor says she's loving it. Glenn Bill, oh, Andy, hey, buddy, how are you? All right, let's get to it. We got number 5. Now, this is just one of my favorite pieces of history that I threw in here because there have been some books on this, and one of them I think one of the books was called Operation X that I read, and I think that's the name of it. But this is just a great story. Okay, so in 1943, this is in the middle of World War II, and Great Britain was crafting this plan to invade Sicily. And they needed the Germans and the Italians to think that they were invading somewhere else. So they needed a spy to deliver some disinformation. And so they used a dead guy. A dead guy. They gave the dead man a new name. They named him Major William Martin. And they gave him a fictitious history. They gave put papers on him, English currency. They put love letters on him from somebody, and a letter outlining an imminent invasion of either Sardinia on the right side of Italy or Greece on the left. And the body was tossed from a British submarine off the coast of Spain, where it soon washed ashore. And so the Germans believed the information was correct and removed troops to the coast of Greece and Sardinia. And that night, thousands of British soldiers parachuted into the relatively unguarded island of Sicily. And so they're being credited with the crucial first line of soldiers that ultimately made the D-Day invasion possible. But it was a dead, fictitious man who played a key role in one of the most decisive battles of World War II. So you can just say I don't know if he was a Marine or not, but that was truly esprit de corps. So, okay. You liking this out there, Little M? We ain't got anybody in the studio with us today. So Julie Brought-Walter says, love learning where phrases originate. First time viewer, you caught me with that. Good, I'm glad you're here. Emma Bedford says, interesting. Okay, Linda Rogers, love old sayings. Okay, here we go. Let's go with another one. This one, I mentioned this on the show the other day. And so then I mentioned this, and I went back and went through my research on this to find the things of what I mentioned. But here's the deal. On the morning of February 5th, 1958, now think about this time, 1958, a B-47 bomber collided with a P-86 fighter jet. The pilot of the 86 bailed out safely, and his plane crashed. The B-47 was damaged but flyable. The crew was given permission to jettison the 7,600-pound, 12-foot-long thermonuclear bomb into the Atlantic Ocean off Savannah, Georgia. And that is where the bomb still is to this day. So there was an Air Force investigation in 2001 that said that the bomb was probably harmless if it was left where it was, and they insisted that the bomb had been used for practice and did not contain the plutonium needed for a nuclear explosion. That's what the government said. Then in July 2004, a group led by retired Air Force Lieutenant Colonel Derek Duke said a large object was found underwater near Savannah, possibly the nuclear bomb, as it was emitting high levels of radioactivity. And get this, according to many environmental groups, there are an estimated 50 nuclear warheads, most of them from the former Soviet Union, that still lie on the bottom of the world's oceans. Oh my gosh. All right. Here is number three. Number three. And this, if you like where phrases came from, you've heard of getting down to brass tacks. Okay, now we're getting down to brass tacks. This is where this came from. So, at the same time that the explorer Samuel Wallis discovered Tahiti in June 1767, his crewmen discovered that the native women would trade sex for iron nails. The Tahitians had found many uses for iron nails, and they soon became more precious than silver or gold. I mean, on Tahiti, what would you need silver and gold for? But these nails. So soon, there was a very delicate condition that evolved. On the one hand, you had these beautiful, exotic women willing to do anything for iron nails. And on the other hand, you had lonely, bored sailors with nothing to do but figure out how to get their hands on iron nails. Thereby, they would get their hands on the beautiful exotic women. And at the heart of the problem was the ship, the Dolphin, a wooden ship that was held together by iron nails. So Captain Wallis was forced to forbid the trade. Okay, he wrote in his journal, it was soon found that all the cleats had been ripped off. He wrote this in the captain's log, and that there was scarcely one of the hammock nails left. And the nail crisis came to a head when their transactions led to the collapse of the mainsail. But finally, the men just couldn't get nails, and they started to dismantle the coverings from the furniture, which was held on by brass tacks. So they were down to brass tacks. And I don't know what you get for a brass tack, but use your imagination. Okay, or don't use your imagination. You don't want to imagine that. Now, here is something that's very interesting. Now, I don't find many people who have heard this or are aware of this. But if you think about it, there would be something to find there, okay? So, how do I put this? Here's something about the presidents of the United States that we all know is true. George Washington was the first president of the United States, right? Nope. Think about it. The original 13 colonies of the United States got their independence from England through the Declaration of Independence signed in 1776. Okay. Now, George Washington wasn't elected president of the United States until 1789. That means there's a gap of 13 years between the founding of our nation and the election of the first president. So who ran the country during those first 13 years? John Hanson. That's who. John Hanson was elected President of the United States in Congress assembled. by a unanimous vote of Congress on November 9th, 1781. He served for 1 year. Hanson was then followed by Elias Boudinot, the second president of the United States. Thomas Mifflin was the third president of the United States. Richard Henry Lee, the fourth. Nathan Gorman, the fifth. Arthur St. Clair, the sixth. And Cyrus Griffin, the seventh. And coming in at number 8 is George Washington. I cannot tell a lie. I cannot tell a lie. All right. Cat Hooker says abandoned ship. Hey, Yvonne Palmer. Frida Jones. Hey. Okay, so what do we got? You love that Brad. All right. And this is just something that about that time that I've never seen reported. We've all heard about the Boston Tea Party that happened, December 16th, 1773, when they were really ramping up and the colonists dressed as Indians and they threw the tea, because of the tax, they threw the tea off the ship into Boston Harbor. But they chose low tide to throw the party and to throw the tea overboard. And what happened was that nearly 350 crates of tea piled up in the shallow water. And the people dressed up as Indians had to jump overboard and smash open the crates to make sure that the tea was ruined. All right. So here, I think, is number 1. This is just the weirdest one, the most ridiculous one that I could come up. Mark Lowry, you said what? Yes, my friend. All this is true. So impressive what a good PR agent did for Washington. That's what Kathy Godwin said. Okay, so here's number 1 for today. This is our last ridiculous history. And we'll call this Heavy is the Head That Wears the Crown. Okay, this is in 1685, on the morning of February 2nd, when King Charles II fell ill. A team of doctors, 6 doctors, were immediately aside. The king is ill. And those 6 doctors might have been the worst thing that ever happened to him. President Garfield, when President Garfield was shot, he didn't die immediately. And you can read a biography of Garfield now, and it was the doctor that killed him. If it wasn't for the doctor he would have lived, because he'd lived for like weeks. But the doctor killed him. And think about this. So here's 6 doctors with King Charles, 1682, and these 6 doctors immediately to his side, and they're the worst thing that could have happened. Okay, so here's some of the procedures that were used on the king. They drained 16 ounces of blood. Then, in order to stimulate his system, they applied heated porcelain cups to the skin that formed large round blisters. They drained 8 more ounces of blood. They induced vomiting to cleanse his stomach, gave him an enema to purify his bowels, and made him swallow a purgative to evacuate his intestines. So this type of torture treatment continued for 4 days. More bleedings, more blistering, more purging, more vomiting, more enemas. They gave him a concoction made from pigeon droppings, a cure of 40 drops of the extract of human skull of a man who had met a violent death, a force feeding of the gallstone of a goat, and finally, extracts of all the herbs and animals in the animal kingdom. The result? The king died. I mean, what do they expect? But in compared with dealing with socialized medicine, that sounds pretty good, doesn't it? Oh my gosh. I mean, I just can't imagine that. Thomas McMillan says hopefully his insurance covered that. But golly, can you? Emma Bedford says all this published in a book. It's in some books. It's in a lot of books. So I'll find a book for you that has a lot of it in it. There's a bunch of them that have this kind of stuff. But anyway, thank you for joining us today. We're still waiting on a trade. We got the Upper Mississippi River riverboat, houseboat that sleeps 10, and waiting on a trade for it. Becky, wow. Somebody said I'm sick now. Hey, thank you for being with us, and we'll see you next week.